All right, mate, have you ever had this happen to you before? Someone disrespects you, someone says or does something you don't like, but instead of say something about it in the moment, instead of stick up for yourself and speak up for yourself, you freeze, you say nothing, you go blank, you don't know how you feel, you kind of dissociate. Only to then replay the conversation later on in your mind, thinking of all the things you could have said, you should have said, you will say next time, in these kind of like, in a kind of fantasy. But this makes you feel shit, it makes you feel like a loser, it makes you feel like you don't respect yourself. Have you ever had that happen before? Because the truth is, man, I have many, many times. And in today's video, I'm talking about what that freeze response is and how you can deal with it so that you can handle conflict and assert yourself and set boundaries properly, so that you can become a confident man who respects himself and gets the respect he deserves from other people, okay? So that's what I'm diving into in today's video. And if we've never met before, my name is Oliver. I help men conquer people pleasing, build confidence, and live life on their terms. So whether it's with your boss at work, consistently disrespecting you and putting work on your plate without consulting you, whether it's with friends who consistently do things like showing up late or consistently making fun of you in some subtle ways, or with in your relationship with your girlfriend or your partner, and you're tolerating these kind of subtle levels of disrespect. Whatever the case is, the problem is this freeze response. Because if you genuinely believed you deserved that kind of disrespectful treatment, then you wouldn't be having these fantasies later on. You would just think it was normal. But the reason why you're having these fantasies and you're replaying the conversation later is because a part of you realizes and recognizes that you do not deserve this kind of treatment. So let's talk now about this freeze response. What is it? What's really going on in your body when the threat of a conflict comes up and you freeze up physically? What's essentially happening is what is known as an emotional flashback or a trauma response, okay? What's happening is the threat of conflict is coming up, your nervous system is entering into a survival mechanism or a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, okay? This is what is known as the 4F types, okay? And this is basically what is talked about quite often in complex PTSD, CPTSD. And for more information on this, outside of the purview of this video, I recommend you read the amazing book, Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker, where he actually talks about the 4F types. Most of the time, when we think of like a nervous system response, we think of fight or flight. When you think about this, when you're told about this, when you read books about this, they get talked about a lot, the fight or flight response. But the thing is, when it comes to people like us who struggle with people pleasing and nice guy syndrome habits and stuff like that, those are not actually the two responses that are the most predominant. The most predominant responses that our nervous system goes through in the threat of a conflict is the freeze or fawn response, okay? So the freeze is full dissociation, okay? It's like you cut off from your emotions as a survival strategy. The fawn response is you go into pleasing mode. You try to keep the peace. You try to please everybody. You try to hide your true feelings. You try to avoid conflict at all costs. So people pleasers and nice guys usually have a combination of the freeze or the fawn response, okay? But why do you do this? Why do you have this programmed in your body? Because of early childhood conditioning. Earlier on in your life, you learned, usually when you were a kid, that to speak your truth, to rock the boat, to say what you really mean, to let your real feelings be known, to set boundaries, to tell someone to back off or to tell someone that you're upset or whatever, is a dangerous thing. So now, as an adult, whenever that situation comes about, your nervous system, your brain, kind of shifts into how it felt when you were younger, okay? When you're in a freeze response or a fawn response with your boss or whatever, you're not responding to the situation as you are as an adult who can take care of himself and set boundaries and stuff, which is the truth. You're not a kid anymore. But that part of your mind shifts back. It's like you're 6 years old again in your dad's living room or whatever, or at school, okay? So it's impossible to set boundaries and to speak your truth when your mind, your brain, your body and everything is locked into a fear state into a survival response, and when you feel like a child, it's impossible to do that, okay? So the reason I'm saying that is because I don't want you blaming yourself, okay? I don't want you blaming yourself and feeling like a loser. It's impossible to be assertive when you're in a fear response. So with that in mind, let's talk about how we can handle the fear response. I have a process, okay? So let's say you're in a situation that's triggered you emotionally and you feel the freeze coming on. Step one, you've got to pause and you've got to recognize, okay? Instead of trying to handle the complex world of a social situation and setting boundaries and stuff and all that stuff, it's impossible to do when you don't recognize what's going on in your body, okay? So you've got to pause and you've got to recognize. Even saying to yourself, oh, I'm freezing right now, I'm freezing up. Taking a deep breath, okay? And recognizing what's going on, naming it, okay? Becoming emotionally literate about this kind of stuff. I'm freezing right now. Say that in your head. That's step one. Step two is you've got to ground yourself and you've got to regulate your emotions, okay? This is why to every single client I have, I recommend practicing some sort of embodiment or somatic practice like breath work, cold showers, Qigong, Tai Chi, whatever the case is. It's all about grounding yourself in your emotions and dealing with your emotions in the moment when you are triggered, okay? It's like in times of peace, you prepare for war, okay? So every day, I want you to be doing some sort of embodiment practice, breath work or whatever. If you're not doing that, there is no excuse for it, okay? If you want to be the best man you could possibly be, you have to learn to regulate your emotions. And you can't expect to be good at this in the moment of being triggered. So you've got to practice this. But let's say you're in the moment already. You've recognized, I'm freezing. Step two is taking some deep breaths. 7 seconds in through the nose, 11 seconds out through the mouth. You keep doing that until you regulate your own emotions and start seeing things a bit more clearly, okay? That's how you unfreeze, is by embodying and grounding. But let's say you're in a situation where someone in the moment is talking to you and doing something that's disrespectful, or you're in an argument or whatever the case is, okay? The third step is to have a few phrases ready, okay? A few phrases when you're freezing up. You could say to somebody in the moment, okay, I need a few minutes. We'll come back and we'll talk about this. Okay, I need some space. I'm gonna go for a walk, I'm gonna come back. So the third step is all about speaking to the other person and saying what you need and intentionally taking that space for yourself. So those are the 3 steps. It's really simple, but you have to put it into practice. Name and recognize, ground yourself in your emotions, regulate your emotions, and have the phrases and create space from the situation so that you can regulate your emotions and deal with it properly. And the fourth kind of bonus step is that you would reflect on this later in your journal, which, by the way, mate, if you're not taking a journal, if you're not doing a journal, if you're not journaling at all, fix that, okay? Because if you want to grow, you need to journal. You need to self-reflect, okay? So bonus step 4 is to reflect on what the trigger was, reflect on what your thoughts and feelings were in the moment, reflect on what you wanted in that moment to say, but you didn't say, and reflect on what it was that prevented you from doing it, what fears prevented you from doing it. Setting boundaries and handling conflict is mostly an emotional self-regulation practice. And if you follow these 4 steps, I guarantee you're going to make progress, all right? So this kind of stuff, emotional regulation, is what I work on with clients in a one-to-one setting. So if you're interested in working with me, click the link in the pinned comment down below, read the page, learn all about it, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay courageous.